Elevate your space by upcycling a sewing table into a chic painted end table, and learn how to paint your furniture white.
Color outside the lines.
So I believe it is walnut. I mean, some of it could be mahogany, but it looks like walnut to me. The top has some damage here. We're going to have to glue down the veneer and fill up some of the holes. It flips open. It has a door that opens with a nice shelf here. And we may take this piece of broken wood away and put a shelf in the bottom if we don't use it for a sewing machine again. We have two options. The door's a little loose, it just needs the hinges fixed. And we're going to put a coat of Zinsser Bin shellac-based primer on it. It's going to seal the whole unit up, it reduces odor, and it'll stop the bleed through. Okay, this top we're going to paint, but we're missing a little veneer here, and some of this veneer is loose. And instead of cutting the veneer back, I think I'm going to try and super glue some of it down to start with. And once that's dry, we'll use a two-part putty to fill that in properly. We have 3 different super glues that we get from Lee Valley. One is water thin, one is medium thick, and this is thicker like molasses. We're going to use the thinnest one because we want it to wick underneath some of this veneer here. We can't really peel it up too well to smear glue under there, so it'll wick under. Also, even though super glue dries really quick and you just hold it for 15 seconds, I'm going to throw a little bit of plastic on there, a piece of wood, and I'm going to clamp it for about 15 minutes to really make sure it's set properly. And the reason I put plastic down, if I try and clamp with a piece of wood and it sticks with the glue, you're trying to rip wood off. If we use plastic and it gets stuck, it's much easier to peel off a bit of plastic and sand it off than it is a piece of wood. So that's the theory.
We're using the force of gravity to actually allow it to wick in.
Now I have to work quick here because this dries really fast. I'm just going to try and get some under any of this veneer. If I end up with a little loose veneer, I can always cut that out because I'm filling it with two-part putty anyways. So we'll do this really quickly. Try to. This is Hot Stuff. CA glue, instant glue.
Don't stop.
I don't know if you can see how thin this is, but it really wicks in there quickly. Just using a blade to lift the veneer a little bit. Okay. Well, I'm going to put a rag over that. And put this on here. There we go. I'll add 2 more clamps just to make sure it's tight. There we go. Now we're going to let that dry for about 15 minutes.
We're always curious to know what the finish is on a piece before we actually go over it, so we're just going to test it out to see if it's shellac clear finish here.
So we put a bit of ethyl alcohol, shellac thinner, on a rag. We're just going to give it a light rub. It starts coming off on the rag. It starts melting its shellac.
So it's looking like it is shellac, right?
Oh, I don't know. It doesn't seem to be, but it has to be.
Well, then what's that yellow on your cloth?
Well, it is really yellow, but it's not much.
So it definitely looks like it melted the finish there.
It's melting the finish, so it is shellac.
Okay, so we've got a shellac piece here. So to clean the piece, you have a few choices. So one of those choices is Varsol. And essentially you just wipe it on and you don't even have to wash it off or anything. So it's just a one-step process. It's also a good idea when using Varsol to do it perhaps the day before because it does dry slow. So we did this last night to give it a chance to dry. And now we're ready to proceed with sanding, priming, and then painting. We're going to disassemble the door here and probably remove the hinges and the hardware that's visible so that we can work with this. We're also taking the hinges off and we're taking note of the way that it's actually on the piece itself, just in case there's a directional aspect to this. More often than not, we always find different screws on these pieces, and this door was hanging kind of wonky, so we're going to have to fix that when we put this back together. And don't forget to put your hardware in a Ziploc bag so you don't lose anything. So we're going to make sure everything goes into the bag.
Oh, nothing stuck. That's good. Wow, it looks like it's stuck down pretty good. I can actually leave all this tape for now.
Okay, so let's get the wood filler
We're going
on.
to use the fill. This is, we're actually going to use a good quality 2-part wood filler from Minwax. It's like a body filler for wood, and it's really tough, so it'll be good on an edge. It won't break out. It won't. If you knock it, it'll stay in place. For some of these finer scratches here, we're going to use a regular Famo-Wood water-based wood filler. Before we sand this, we can fill in the scratches, and when we sand, all the scratches will be filled in. Okay, first of all, when you use this filler, make sure you have well-ventilated area because it stinks, like car body filler. And put some gloves on, keep it off your hands. I just use a popsicle stick to stir it. Make sure it's stirred to start with. And when you mix this, it's about a 1-inch squeeze of hardener to a golf ball sized amount of this, and we don't need a golf ball size, so we're just going to eyeball it. We're just going to mix a little bit of this up. That's probably lots for what we're doing. So you can smell it already. Make sure you knead the cream hardener. Just make sure it's not separated as a liquid and a. You'll see this is a white one. There's different colors. We're just going to use a little bit like that. That's lots for what we're doing. Probably too much. We're going to stir this for at least 30 seconds. Make sure it's all incorporated, because any little bit of this without hardener in it is not going to set. It all has to have a hardener. So I do it on a plastic lid because it's easier to hold. And I just throw the plastic lid away when I'm done. I'll put it in the blue box if I can get the hardener putty off.
It's also easier to scoop it off, as you'll see when we come to that.
See, so just keep mixing this around. Mix it around. Make sure it's well incorporated. Okay, we take our putty knife. Now I've taped up around this, all the holes with a bit of green tape, and the reason is it's hard to sand this off really hard. And I only want it to go where I need it. And you'll see once I fill this, I'm going to take the tape off right away, and you'll see how, I don't have to be as neat putting it on when the tape's there. I can just spread it on. You have to be pretty quick. This stuff starts setting up in a couple minutes.
Can we do some of these bigger scratches with it too?
I don't know. We could try. It's hard to sand off. We got a whole little edge missing here, so I'm going to try and build that up a little bit with some of this. I put tape on the edge of here too, so we don't have to clean it off the edge. But, see, we got all that done now. Very quickly. I'm going to start peeling the tape off, and you'll see. See, it's only left where you need it. And we're not trying to. We're not sanding it off the wood surface so much. There we go. That's only going to take about 5 to 10 minutes to set up. And then we're ready to. We've got a little bit left, so it hasn't set up. So we can try and fill a few of these little scratches, but it's very hard to sand off, so you don't want to put too much on here or you're going to be in trouble. Put on very, very thin. There's some veneer missing there. We'll put it in there. A little bit there. With a glove you can wipe the excess off the edge. Just starting.
Just try to do some of the deeper scratches, I guess.
Some of this, but a lot of this we're going to use an electric sander to sand this top because we are painting it,
Yeah.
and it's in rough shape. So a lot of this will just get sanded right out.
These are pretty deep too.
Yeah. I think most of this will get sanded back off, but just a little bit more there. The rest of the edge looks really good. There, that's about it. Now, you can judge by how hard it is by just checking this lid once in a while. After about 5 minutes, you'll see how hard it is.
That's how you know when it's ready to sand.
If it gets to the point where it's fairly stiff, but it's not 100% set, you can actually start sanding. It'll sand very easily. Once it totally sets up, it's going to be harder than this wood. So it's going to be really difficult to sand, so then you have to be careful you're not sanding through your veneer trying to sand this off. And normally these scratches in the top before I sand, I would use something like Famo Wood water-based filler. We use the 2-part on the edges because it could get knocked and broken and damaged, and this isn't as tough. But this is good for all these little scratches before you sand. And it's water-based, dries in 10 minutes, and you're ready to sand. Before lightly sanding this, before we put our primer on, I'm going to go around the unit with some green painter's tape, and any holes I think I want filled, I'm going to mark. Then I'm going to fill them with water-based Famo wood filler, and it only takes about 10 minutes to dry. And then when I start going around and lightly sanding the piece, I just sand right over the spots where I've filled, and then it's good for priming.
With a top as scratched as this, we're going to be using a really good sander to get those scratches out. We've got a Bosch variable speed sander here.
These are detail contour sanding grips, and they're for sanding in different moldings, and they come in different sizes, different shapes. So you just wrap your paper around this, hold on to this, and you can sand in your groove. And depending on the size of your groove, you're going to use a larger one, a smaller one. I'm using the smallest one here. Look at it, fits in there perfectly. You can sand that.
These are just amazing for getting in all the nooks and crannies in this piece. And the reason that we're doing this is because there's a lot of dents and dings in it.
This one he sets comes with a flat one too, which is really good for getting in the corners and edges. This paper has a sticky back, you can just stick it on there.
This is especially good for where we just did that fix with the wood filler.
The fix we did. It's all Bondo, it's all glued, Bondoed, sanded smooth. Beautiful.
Well, it's not actual Bondo. Bondo's for cars, right?
It's a wood Bondo, type of Bondo. Yeah, all our scratches are filled in. A lot of stuff we puttied is all sanded away, and some of the deeper scratches it stayed. That's good.
It's looking really good now. Just going to stir up the bin before we get into our cup gun over here. Are we going to strain this too?
Yep, we have a strainer.
This is a 2 or 3 scoop job.
Let's try 3. Maybe we'll do 4. We can always pour it back. Now the bin dries really, really quick. So we're going to put the lid back on the can, or else you'll find by the time you're done spraying, it'll be skinning over already. So we'll do that. We'll just leave that. This will go in there.
So we want the pressure around 30 pounds, so we're just setting the gauge right here.
I think 30 and 40 seems good. I'm going to start upside down. You get the bottoms.
Once the underside is painted, you can flip it right over and proceed with the rest. We're doing one light coat here, and then we're going to have a look and see if there's any bleed through, and if it's looking good, you can proceed with paint. The paint that we're using actually has a built-in primer too, so it does double duty. So if all is good with this first coat of bin, we're good to go with the paint. Now we could speed up the video or even cut to the next section, but I want you to appreciate just how quick it is to spray it start to finish in real time. That's the real beauty of spraying versus brushing. It just goes so quickly and really saves you time. As you're moving around the perimeter of the piece, just be cognizant of where your spray hose is and make sure that you're not tripping. Before you finish, just eyeball the piece to make sure that there aren't any areas that you've missed. Even though you're likely not going to see the inside of this piece, it's always a good idea to spray bin on the inside too, because it does seal any odors. We just need a light coat on it so our top paint color will stick. And of course, we also want to prevent bleed through.
All sealed up. We're just going to give this a light scuff just to get some of the scratches out of this, and then we're going to coat this with a primer too.
Beautiful.
Now all the prep work and sanding did a great job at making a smooth finish, but we are going to sand in between this coat and the paint just to ensure a super smooth finish. Just be sure to remove the dust with either a tack cloth or with a slightly barely damp cloth. If you do use a tack cloth, be sure that you buy one that's silicone free. That will ensure that your paint sticks. Clean out your paint gun and get ready for your water-based paint. One other maintenance task before spraying the final coat is to turn the drain valve on the air compressor to release any moisture in the tank.
Pretty clean, no rust. That's it.
I've got 2 containers of no paint gel stain here. One is golden ash, which is this color. And the other one is American Honey, which is this color. Neither of which I love. So I'm going to try to add a little bit of black colorant to one of these to darken it up.
If you'd like to see our tutorial on how to change stain color, we'll provide the link in the description, and you can also click on the card above. So here's a quick overview of how the stain looks before and after.
Now that my gel stain is dry, I'm going to be putting on 2 coats of clear coat satin. I'm using Dixie Belle's clear coat and my favorite mini brush, and this is my mini angle. I've already got 1 coat on here. I'm going to do 2. I completed the first one about an hour ago, so I'm just going to dip in and brush it on. Try not to overwork it. So you can see I've got both sides of the brush wet. I'm going to start in the middle and go out to the edge, and then work my way back from the middle and out to the other edge here. And again, taking long strokes with the grain just to smooth that out. I'm just going to bring this forward so I can get the edge. Just going to come at an angle and then smooth it out straight. Just so I can get right up to the edge. I don't want to spill over the edge. I don't want to get clear coat pooling or dripping over the edge. So there, I'm going to call that done. Now I'm not going to show this on camera, but I'm going to do the same to the inside of the actual body of the cabinet, and then I'll be able to move on to paint. I'm just getting ready to prep the sewing table for final coat of paint, and what I'm going to be using is Silk All-in-One Mineral Paint in a color called Oyster. I'm just in the process of taping up where the hinges are here, and then I'm going to cover up the rest of this top with a piece of moisture-resistant paper, just to prevent any seepage on the stain. I'm going to take half an ounce of distilled water here and mix it into half this container. This is 16 ounces, so I'm going to mix 8 ounces into a new container here before I put it into my paint gun in order to spray it.
Here's how it looks with the inside stained, ready to be used again for a sewing machine, or closed to be used as a side table.
These are good if you're building furniture or refinishing because you can sand in the contours. Want to do it again or you got it?
Yeah, because the bee distracted me.
For more upcycle ideas, be sure to subscribe and ring that bell for upcoming projects.